hip hop, just a sample. Imagine a time when hip hop as you know it doesn't exist. DJs are making music and cutting records, but the records that you're hearing on the radio in early hip hop are bands replaying funk and disco and just straight drum machine beats. There's no soul to the music yet. The sample has not been introduced. So it doesn't matter if you're a fan of hip hop or not, or sample-based beats. You've heard them at one time or another, but you probably never dug into the actual art of it, the soul of it, and how it came about and who was credited with the first sample beat, and why it's still so popular today. Sampling became the backbone of hip-hop production in the mid-1980s and is still standing strong today. Credibility for me would be, take a look around the room. I've been collecting, DJing, scratching records since I was a young teen. I've used basically every sampler that's come out since the early 1990s, late 1980s to now. I use all these products quite a bit. I've produced a lot of records, was pretty big in the hip hop scene in Grand Rapids in the 1990s and still active today. So I'm gonna go over a few points. I got 3 main points today. It'll be how and why sampling started, where it got its beginning, copyrights and wrongs, the legality of it, and where it is today. This journey started in New York City, late 1970s, where hip-hop DJs were creating new ways of manipulating records. They were taking two of the same record and they would play the funkiest part of the record back and forth, creating a loop. From this loop, they became the original samplers. What they were doing with these records was the desired sound. It was the soundscape that anyone that started rapping wanted to rap to if they were in the club, the park, or the discotheque. The sound the DJ made is what everybody wanted. So the early records, like I said, that came out were using just drum machines and they were replaying discos. Rapper's Delight is actually Chic's Good Times. So it wasn't really that original. So in all these records, the sound that's on the street, there's something missing that hasn't been captured yet in the studio. So they're all trying to recreate that DJ sound, that loop that DJ's been creating for years. So in Rodney Carmichael's article, he mentions Marley Marl, who is the first one that is credited with revolutionizing hip-hop production when he almost by accident figured out how to sample a drum sound from a record. And this changed the whole game. This is when hip-hop went from point A to point B. It's the missing element. This is the sound that everyone's been trying to recreate. They can take the sound the DJ was doing, but now they can reproduce it on time and add to it and layer it and make this production fatter and fatter, and the creativity just sparked from there. So now technology has opened the door. Sample beats are the driving force in hip hop as the 80s come into the early 90s. It's pretty much under the radar. Corporate America hasn't got their hands on it yet. They don't understand it. And then as it grows and starts to gain more airplay and more popularity, now a lot of musicians and owners of publishing are asking, is that my song? So now we enter a new dilemma, copyrights and wrongs of sampling. There's serious money being made and everybody wants a piece of this pie. So up to this time, there's been lawsuits, but they've all been settled out of court, where artists and the artists that they sampled just settle things out of court. It hasn't made a whole lot of noise. There's no actual legal ramifications of this yet. But in 1991 is when it's all changed. It's the first lawsuit. It was Grand Upright Music Ltd. Versus Warner Brothers. And in the Journal of Popular Music, Amanda Sewell stated that the courts were not ready to accept sampling as anything other than outright copyright theft. And this would change everything. From this point on, all samples must be pre-approved by copyright owners if you want to escape litigation. So the album that was at the heart of this whole thing was Biz Marquis's I Need a Haircut. And ironically, after this court case, his next album was titled All Samples Cleared. So now the courts are involved. You're scared of being sued. How do you still keep your creativity as a producer, grab from all these sounds, these records, without worrying about what's going to happen after you make the beat? Especially now in this information age, where there's websites dedicated to busting you out as a producer. All they do is, if you ever seen Who Sampled It or anything else, they will basically take and go through the catalog of anything you've ever used and put it out on the internet, what you sample. So you got to be very careful what you're doing. And it's like hard. What are producers to do? Well, as we came through the 90s with the lawsuits and we get into the 2000s, technology has changed. So now there's sample clearance websites like a TrackLib where you can go and actually download and sample music. Copyright are paid for, and you have all the publishing rights, so it's 100% legal. You can use their anything in their library, and you are 100% in the clear. So it kind of brings creativity back into it. And in January 19, 2021 interview with TrackLib, Danny Beacons talks with Bob James, who is a legendary jazz musician, probably the second most sampled artist besides James Brown. And he talks to him in an interview because Bob James has actually uploaded his music to TrackLib, so you can use his music to make beats. And Bob James is quoted as saying, "I think it's fantastic. It's going to lead to many new creative things in the future," which is very true. So what else have we got in the new era? Well, now we have all these new equipment. The equipment has gone crazy. I have like this MPC, which is one of the best standalones, computer-based softwares that I use. And you got like Pro Tools and Logic, which I use Logic all the time because it's Apple. And so now you've taken all these tools that we have now, and we can create anything we want. Sky is absolutely the limit. So today I tried to share with you the insights on the samples journey. I wanted to tell you how it started, show you the copyright legalities of it, and where it is today, which is very strong. So from the Bronx DJs to Queensbridge Marley Marl sampling, from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s, we have recreated a sound, a soulful sound that is still going on today and is so popular.